us get to work is our keynote speaker, who I am delighted, beyond delighted, to invite to the podium. Jennifer Laszlo Mizrahi is the president of a nonprofit called RespectAbility, and they are dedicated to fighting stigmas and advancing opportunities for people with disabilities. Jennifer is a power. I mean, she is a force. She is a true force. She is a true inspiration for me. She didn't come to Washington and pick up the playbook on how to do things. Jennifer has found her own way and advanced the mission of her organization in a way that I think every single one of us can be extraordinarily inspired by. She regularly works with other disability organizations, national, state, and local policy leaders, workforce development professionals, the media, employers, philanthropists, celebrities, a lot of celebrities, and faith-based organizations in order to advance opportunities for people with disabilities. She has submitted testimony on employment for people with disabilities in all 50 states and at the federal level, and she has met one-on-one, and if I can say the same thing in a couple of years, Jennifer, we will have arrived. She's met one-on-one with disability issues with 46 of America's governors. She's published more than 100 op-eds and publications on disability issues. She's gotten published in USA Today, The Hill, and a score of other publications. She's the author of Disability and Criminal Justice Reform, Keys to Success, which brought critical attention to the school-to-prison pipeline and was featured on the PBS NewsHour. She is involved, and she's more than just involved, in the Emmy award-winning television show Born This Way and Deaf Out Loud, and she is all about advancing positive portrayals of disability in Hollywood. Dyslexic herself, she knows what it means to parent a child with multiple disabilities. So with that, Jennifer, welcome to ANCOR, and thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you, Barbara. To be at ANCOR, and I will just say that Esme is one of the most amazing people for connecting with politicians going, and Sarah Meek and the whole team at ANCOR are very, very impactful, and how thrilled I am to work with them. So let me start by asking folks, who here knows the name of your governor? Okay, now this is a harder question. Who here really thinks that the governor knows your name? Okay. So here's the thing. It's not who you know, but who knows you that really matters in your ability to advance an agenda. And so I'm going to talk about how you can take limited time, limited treasure, and whatever talent you have to have the largest impact possible, because we're always at a shortage of the 3 T's, the time, the treasure, and the talent. And so I'm going to go through how you all can make a difference. So number one, you have to ask yourself some key questions. First of all, what do you want to change? What do you want to have different? What is working that you want to see more of? For example, we at RespectAbility are massive fans of Project Search. We're massive fans of Bridges to Work. We're massive fans of what's going on with Promise, and we want to see more of those kinds of things. We're massive fans of early intervention and high expectations, and a lot of the really amazing work that you're doing in direct supports for your clients. So you want to expand the things that are working. You want to eliminate the things that aren't working. So you want to be very clear about what are the things that you want to change and impact. And then you need to ask yourself, who are the people who can make those changes? Not, I'm going to yell at my television set and that's going to magically, sparkle dust and it's going to happen overnight. But who are the people who can actually make the difference? And then how do you build the relationships over time that'll make those differences happen? And what sort of media outlets are they consuming information from? Who are the people that they know and that they trust? And sort of what is their circle of influence? And so we at RespectAbility, and Esme was involved in this, we set out to go to political events. Now, I'll tell you, the best time to meet and build a relationship with a politician is generally before they're in office, because then they're really looking for friends and they're looking to learn issues. That doesn't mean that you have to be partisan or you have to endorse them, because we as a nonprofit, we never endorse, and we don't help people campaign for their office. We help people understand the needs, the hopes, the desires of people with disabilities. And so getting to know them out in the presidential campaign, and we went, and for weeks, we were in New Hampshire, we were in Iowa, we went to every town hall meeting and always raising our hand and asking questions, that you can be doing that, because quite frankly, after November, we expect to see a lot of new faces in a lot of important positions, and it will be super helpful if in the next 40 days you can get to know some of those people before they're in office. Now, I want to just go through some housekeeping. Now, I know that in our community, sometimes it's popular to like chain yourself to a desk and get arrested and pulled off to make a point about politics. And that has been a very effective strategy for some groups on some issues. But I will tell you that if you want to build a long-term relationship of trust with an elected official, that the mutual respect that Barbara talked about is very, very important, and your manners are very important, and the people you bring to your team. Now, I'm looking around the room. I myself am a person with white privilege. I'm in a two-parent family. I will bet that most of the people that you serve are not people living with white privilege in two-parent families. When you go to an editorial board or you go to a governor's meeting, I hope you will take that opportunity to make sure that the community that you serve is involved in that meeting. In other words, as a CEO, don't go by yourself to the meeting. Pick the smartest, most talented young leaders with diverse background, with lived experience, including people with disabilities, and help lift up their skills and contacts and bring them to the meeting, because you're hoping that, 5 years, 10 years from now, that this room will look a lot more diverse and will reflect much more of the country. And I'm bringing this up because there's 6 million people, children with disabilities in America's public schools today, 6 million, and the majority of them are people of color. And if you look around this room, and I'm looking around this room, I think it's important to self-examine ourselves and ask, can we reflect the population that we serve going forward? Because we need to lift up these leaders who represent different parts of the community. So you arrive 15 minutes early, bring your posse. When I go and meet with a governor, I want to have Esme with me. I want to have Best Buddies with me. I want to have Paralyzed Veterans of America with me, because what happens is that you have more power when you're bringing more constituency groups into the meeting. So don't think, wow, I got a meeting with the governor, I'm going to hog that meeting all for myself. Say, I've got a meeting with the governor, who else that cares about the same issues can I bring into that meeting with me so we can maximize the power of that community so we can have a larger impact? When we went to these town hall meetings for the presidential candidates, we got there very early. We tried to figure out who's the advanced person, who's the staff person staffing the candidate, introduce ourselves, say, hey, I'm going to want to ask a question about disability. Here's the question I want to ask. Can you help get the candidate to call on me so that my question is the first question and is on camera in front of the reporters, so that it gets into the national dialogue, so that our issues are literally on page 1 of the New York Times and the Washington Post, because you did that sort of prep work. So now I'm going to talk about employment. Now, all of you all are dealing with a wide range of issues, and we just did a national survey of 1,000 voters across this country who are likely to vote. And I will tell you that the top 2 issues for people with disabilities does not include employment. The top issue is access and affordability of health care and benefits. And the number 2 issue might surprise you. It's a deep concern about mass shootings. Why? Because it's very hard for people to escape if they're a person with a disability in many cases during a mass shooting, number 1. And number 2, an NRA strategy has essentially been to deflect the conversation to people with mental health differences. And so people in the disability community feel very strongly about those 2 issues. But see, the thing is, you want to talk about employment because employment is a consensus issue for Democrats and Republicans. And if you want to make a difference, you have to build relationships and you have to move that ball down the field. And this is an issue that gets Democrats and Republicans completely involved on both sides of the aisle. Nobody is against us. It's great also for the physical and mental health of your clients for them to be employed. So it actually has a very, very significant health benefit and life expectancy benefit. And it also combats stigmas because the more people are in competitive integrated employment, the more likely it is for people to see people with disabilities for what they can do and as equal human beings. So, this is important. There are basically 3 kinds of people. There's the people who agree with us on everything, right? They're in this room, right? The Amen Choir, they're in this room. We, could be doing a million things, but this morning we chose to be at the Hyatt Ballroom working on these issues. And then we have enemies, which on the jobs issue we have almost none, but we might have on some other issues that are tougher for us. And then we have the swing. And the swing is basically our enemy in this case, because it's the people who think that every other issue is more important than our issue. They're not against us. But I'll give you an example. How many people knew that yesterday President Trump made an outstanding statement about jobs for people with disabilities? Did anyone see that in the news today? Honest to God, it really happened. It really happened. Yesterday, President Trump put out a lengthy statement about disability employment that got no media coverage because everyone's focused on other issues. So you have to make your issue more salient in a time where people are covering the hyper-politics. And so you all have access to this PowerPoint. I'm sure none of you can read it right now because the font is really small. But we tested in focus groups and we tested in polls what are the best messages that will get people more excited about our issues. And number 1 is this issue of fairness. By the way, we got this messaging from the people who were fighting for marriage equality. As long as they were talking about gay rights or gay marriage, they had very little support. But when they changed the conversation to marriage equality and love is love, and people from the LGBTQ community want to get married just like anyone else, the support for the issue skyrocketed, and the legislation just really, really got moving forward. So we looked at the messaging from that and said, wow, they got all these new supporters, what can we do? So here's the number 1 best message. Our nation was founded on the principle that anyone who works hard should be able to get ahead in life. People with disabilities deserve equal opportunity to earn income and achieve independence just like anyone else. That expression, just like anyone else, you need to wake up, if someone was to wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, what do you want for people with disabilities? No matter what the answer is, tag on just like anyone else, and you will double your support. It's like a magic silver bullet that will help with the cause, number 1. Number 2, people with disabilities bring unique characteristics and talents to the workplaces. People with disabilities can work in hospitals and hotels, apply their talents to develop computer software and website design. There is no limit to what they can do. So that was the second most impactful message. Other messages that are very strong are about the number of, I don't know if you all know that last year, 4 times as more people with disabilities got jobs than the year before. It went from 87,000 new jobs to 343,000 new jobs. It was a 400% improvement. And y'all are doing some good work out there, right? You're seeing more clients and more jobs. And we have it broken down by exactly how many in each state. It's been an extraordinary shift. The Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act is absolutely working, and the work that you guys are doing to focus on best practices is having an astronomically positive impact. But we have a long, long way to go. So what you want to do when you're communicating is you want to get your communications down to what's called a message triangle. If you're going into a meeting, it doesn't matter whether you're seeing the President of the United States, your governor, your editorial board, or you're asking for a raise, or you're asking a major donor for a donation, you will always be better off with your trilogy. You know, what are the three messages? So you can get your three best messages. You want to work with your governor. You want to try and place op-eds. You want to avoid jargon and complicated terms. You really want to get to know them. And every time you're with a governor, you want to take a picture and you want to thank that governor with a press release, with a Twitter, with an Instagram, everywhere. Because the more the governor feels like he or she is getting a win out of working with you, the more they will want to work with you. So that's very important. And using your lived experience and your desire to share. I'm just way too slow for my amount of time that I want to go through all the things. But let me just see what I can. We have been working with every single governor, as you heard from Barbara. So we have written to the governor in every state, and we've asked them this month to do something for National Disability Employment Month. So we have already written them. We've already called their staff, and in many cases, they're looking for a local provider where they can do an event in front of the media, or they would like to meet with somebody in their state. So Debbie Fink, who's right in front of me, and maybe you can raise your hand, she is our point person on this. If you would like to meet with your governor or to offer up your agency as a place for a governor to visit and try and get press around things that are working in your state, if you would like to try and publish an op-ed and would like us to provide you a draft that has all the stats for your state so that you don't have to do a lot of work, but you put in the actual lived experience of your agency and yourself, we're your partner. So you have my contact information. There are a couple things we want you to do. Number one, we really want you to connect with your governor. Number two, your workforce board and agency is really important. Why? Because there is a law, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. $17 billion nationally goes through WIOA. It goes to your state through the governor, who then appoints people to the workforce boards and agencies, who then decides who gets the money. Well, guess what? There's almost nobody from the disability community on any of those boards. So when they divide up the money, which legally now we should have equal access to that money and to that good, there's no one with a disability connection in the room when that is happening, when there is oversight. So you guys, I would love to see you reach out and meet with your workforce boards and agencies, and better yet, get on your workforce board for your state so you can help see what they are doing with that $17 billion. So number one, governor. Number two, workforce boards and agencies. Number three is to know the reporters in your state or in your local area and to try and push news stories, particularly this month, National Disability Employment Month. And number four is that we have a nonpartisan candidate questionnaire, completely nonpartisan. It asks things like, what is your plan to help people with disabilities get jobs? What is your plan to enable health care for people with disabilities in this area? We would love your help as a local person to reach out to your local candidates to ask them to fill out these questionnaires. It's really important that the local people ask, not some organization in Washington. We've sent it to a lot of people, but we will publish it and we'll help you get press around it. The one rule is that if you reach out to a Democrat, you have to reach out to the Republican at the same time. As a nonprofit, you have to treat both sides equally. You can't just go to your favorite candidate and say, hey, you want to look good in the disability community, fill out this questionnaire. You have to treat all the candidates that are viable equally, and you have to be nonpartisan, and you have to give them equal access to answers, and then you have to enable us to have access to their answers so that we can help them. So I'm almost out of time, but those are the 4 things, and we have stats for every single state that we can give you. We can help you with leave time. We have the testimony for every single state. You know, there's a lot more information here, but let me just see, is there any pressing question that people have that I can answer for you? Because you guys are the power. You are the ones who are in the positions who can demand results from your elected officials. I'd love to see, yes ma'am?
Yeah, so we've already submitted the questionnaires to our gubernatorial candidates with some very similar questions.
Right.
So are you saying then that we should send those responses to you to still post even though they weren't from you?
We would be very happy. We have something called the RespectAbility report that is the intersection of politics and disability, and so long as all candidates were approached equally, we will publish those, and we have a media list for each of the 50 states, and we can push the answers out for all 50 states. As of yesterday, which was the first day of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, we had, I think, over a dozen governors who had already issued a special statement, and we had the president's statement, so we're going to be putting those out to the press from around the country, but we'd like to get all 50 governors to fill that out. Why is it important for them to do a proclamation? Because when they do a proclamation that gives any commitments, then you have something to hold them accountable to, number one. Number two, it forces them to focus their mind around our issues, because frankly, they're generally thinking about other issues. And if we want them to think about our issues, then we need to get them to, you know, sign off on some policies like in a candidate questionnaire or something else. And then it's important when they do issue a proclamation, for example, and it's outstanding, as many of the governors have done, to send them a thank you, which, you know, might happen through your social media, it might happen through a thank you letter, but the whole thing is about building a relationship. Because I would love to come back next year or some other time that they invite me to ANCOR, because you guys are incredibly powerful, and I'd like, when I ask how many of the governors know you, I would love for a lot more hands to come up, and that for your local media and your workforce boards as well. Barbara Merrill and Esme and the whole team and all of you who are here today, I just cannot thank you enough for your commitment to the 1 in 5 people with a disability. That includes 6 million school children with disabilities who are your future clients, and it includes the 1 in 4 adults who today live with some sort of disability according to the CDC. The work that you do on the front lines enables people to have the maximum dignity, independence, friendship, longer life expectancy that all of us deserve. Remember, people with disabilities deserve a better future, just like everyone else. Thank you for having me today.